All once again, we are now in session 28 from past 1.5 years. That's we have been doing, and today we are more focused on Azure Logic apps with Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation. Today's session is led by Anita, which is our lead speaker, uh, and the group introduction I will give you. This group we started around 1.5 years ago, and with your love and support, it has been growing. And we have almost reached 1,500 active users replying onto our groups and engaging yourself and ourselves, making them that we do exist. And I see a lot of people participating, giving us things and knowledge wherein we can interpret what can be brought in for your knowledge sharing and keeping you update. So this volunteer group is basically led by Rachit Garg, who is now MVP recently, and Umesh Pandit, Satya Kejriwal as well. We all are now based in Sydney, like in Australia. Rachit sir leading it from Melbourne, Satya and Umesh leading it from Sydney. We started back in India, but the still we are looking forward for you to serve as a community. Um, this is our LinkedIn handle, Twitter handle, as well as Facebook. YouTube. You can actually scan the code and get us connected. As soon as the recording is available for us to do, we will be uploading it onto the YouTube. And if you are following us or subscribed, you will get the notification instantly. We are more focused on Microsoft Dynamics as well as the surrounding ecosystem like Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agent. In case you want to be a speaker, do touch base with me and Rachit sir. Okay, so till now we started in 10th of July and in 2021, and that's our a whole spectrum of what we have delivered till now. All these sessions with number are available on our recorded platform, YouTube. So you are good to go. Today's session, I will not delay more. Today's session is led by Anita. Hand over to you. You can give us a brief introduction and keep your screen sharing. That will be nice. Thank you very much. And I welcome you all again and over to Anita.
Yeah. Thank you, Umesh. Hi, all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone here. I hope you are all doing good. And I thank Umesh and Rachit for giving me an opportunity to share my knowledge with a wider audience here. And I also thank everybody who took time in spite of their busy schedule to attend this session. Thanks a lot. So, with no further delay, let me share my screen and share about today's agenda. Let me turn off the camera, Rachit. Maybe that might be interrupting. One moment, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you see my screen?
Yes,
We
we
see
do.
your teams.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So agenda for today is about the presenter. That's me, Anita Ishwaran. And then the next is, since we are going to speak about Logic Apps DMF, so there comes the integration part. So I will be just giving you a touch base on what are the parameters and the patterns and the batch data APIs, especially for in F&O. So, and then followed by a demo. And if there are any question and answers, we will have time for that as well. So I'm Anita Ishwaran again. So I am into this Microsoft Dynamics AX world for 17 years. So if I remember it was then AX where we had the blue screen with the common credentials to enter our details. So then it is excited to be a part of this evolution journey. Now it is being called as F&O. So now I am purely a F&O technical, and plus I also have hands-on on integration with Azure Logic Apps, Power Platform, then ADF, Azure Data Lake, and whatnot, because every day we have some updates keeps coming on, right? So we need to keep ourselves updated, right? So it's like that. And now I'm a senior digital architect with Sonata Software Europe Limited. It's headquartered in Bangalore, India. So I think you might have heard about the news where Sonata had a partnership in this Microsoft Fabric, which is a hot topic now. So in case if you had not just read that news, please take some time and have a look on how the Microsoft Fabric had hands with the Sonata software to in the collaboration. You can get a brief look on that. And originally I am from India, so currently residing in UK. And I also share my post in my blog, Anita Santosh, where it has mentioned here. So it's not only F&O technical, whatever I learned, be it Power Platform or Logic Apps or SQL, whatever it is, I share my knowledge in this particular blog. And it's been also syndicated in the Microsoft community. So as soon as if you are active a member of Microsoft community, you can also get an alert there. And my hobbies are reading books and as usual, writing blogs, and I prefer short travel. And if you want to get in touch with me, this LinkedIn, you can have a check and you can just have a look and you can get in touch with me anytime. So without further delay, let us move on to our topic. So the parameters for integration. So as soon as you start the integration, so it's not like a development where you need to spend some time on some key factors which would help you to decide the approach which you need to follow for your requirement, because we have various types of requirements which would come for integration, right? So you need to focus on the parameters. So this, I have specified few key parameters here which would help you on deciding the approach. One is data volume. So when it is integration, obviously data would flow out and in of F&O, right? So you need to first find what is the data for volume for your integration. Be it it might be flowing from minimum flow or the medium or the voluminous one, because based on this only you will be deciding what would be the integration pattern you will be deciding. Because for example, some of the patterns will not support a voluminous data. So in that case, this is one of the key factor where you need to get a handle on data volume, and also make sure that you get some idea on the peak and non-peak hours volume also, because at
Uh,
times
Sorry, Anita, we lost your screen. Are you sharing?
yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Do you see my screen?
I have
Or
lost
is
it
it
as
only?
well, Annie.
Yeah. Just try to
Just
unshare
give me
and
a
share
minute.
it
I
again.
think I'll let me make you presenter. Maybe by mistake I made you attendee. Can you try now?
Yeah. Are you able to see now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, yeah, coming back to the peak and non-peak hours data volume. So in few cases where you have month-end closing or the year-end closing, the data flow might be more in that case. So even that cases also, you need to check what is the volume during the peak hours and what will be the volume during the non-peak hours. So this is number one. And the next is frequency. So frequency, it can be either ad hoc or based on the recurrence. Either it can be 30 minutes once, or it can be hourly basis, or after business hours, or bi-weekly. So here you need to take care of the frequency as well. It is not necessary that when the more the frequency, it will not be more data volume. It might be the case that when the frequency is also more, the data volume will also be more. So it is not like hands in on, but it is one of the key factors to decide. And the next one is synchronous or asynchronous. So synchronous is, you need to check whether it's a kind of real time. Here, as soon as you do something in your source system, immediately it will be reflected in the destination. So that is what you call as sync, a real time. So, and async is a kind of batch where it takes some delay to reflect to send the data from the source to the destination. So these are all the key parameters you would need to know, you need to identify when you are working on the integration. And the next one, so with the key, with the pattern, with the parameters with us, now we will see how do we match the patterns with the parameters. So so I have listed few of the integration patterns here. One is OData and the custom service. So mostly here, this matches with the real-time scenarios. And if you see the volume, it doesn't support the maximum volume, where the volume is more. So in case if for maximum, it would support 6,000 records in a 5-minute window. So for example, if your integration is sending some 10,000 records, then in this case, this is not the right approach for you to choose. And though you have chances of even if you send 6K records, there are chances of throttling as well. You can define throttling feature in F&O where you have a setup to give a high priority for your particular service. But there also, there are chances that you will have some AOS performance issues. So OData or the custom service, you keep it for your minimum or the medium data load. And the frequency is maximum 52 concurrent requests it can handle. See, for example, your system will be used by different users, right, from different ends. So maximum it will be able to handle 52 concurrent requests. Otherwise, if it crosses this limit, there are chances of failure as well. And as I said, this is a real-time scenario. And the next is Excel integration. So this we are already aware of. This is already a add-in feature in F&O, and the volume will be maximum 10K, and 10,000 records will be exported at a time. And whereas the import, it will be imported in batches. So in F&O system administration, you have a setup to define how many records you need to handle in a batch. So if you don't specify that, by default it will be 100 in a batch. It will be imported, and the frequency is as usual ad hoc. Whenever the users need to import or export the data, then you can set this integration. And it is a near real time. So it takes some minimum delay to reflect the data in the end system, very minimal. And next is event driven. Event driven, as you know, here the word indicates it is business event. So whatever it is, it's only outbound from F&O. So whenever there is some event like insert or update or whatever it is, confirmation or whatever it is, then the event will be triggered from F&O. So here also you have a limitation on the volume where you have 64 kilobytes per message. So if it crosses that, then there are the fair chances of failure and it will not reach your end system. So care has to be taken. It should not cross this limit. Frequency is ad hoc because this is everything is purely event based. So whenever there is any event defined in your system happen, then this will be triggered. This is a near real time, as I said. And here comes our radar one, the batch data API. So here I will be explaining about this in the next slide, but this one is the best for the voluminous export or import. It not only for, but even if you have a minimum volume, this is suggested you can use it. So, and here you can set as recurrence. So either you will be able to define the recurrence, or it can be combined even with event driven, and then you can do it. So this is a async where you will be able to set the batch, and then based on the batch availability, the records will be processed. Now over to the next slide. And so our topic is based on the batch data APIs. We have two different types of batch data APIs in F&O. One is the recurrence integrations API, and the next one is DMF package API. Not major difference in that. But at the end, it is just that data will be split as batch when F&O is going to process, or it is going to export or import. Everything is based on batch only. But there are some differences where between this API, this recurring integration and the package API. So recurring integration, you will be defining it will be scheduled in F&O, where you will be creating an export or import project, and then you will be defining a batch for it. So the schedule happens in F&O, and everything is based on the batch recurrence, what you set here. But in the other case, API, it is outside the F&O, either via Logic apps or the Power Platform, whatever it is. This will be scheduled outside it because the outside system is going to call this API. And the supported formats in recurrence integration is files and data packages. Data packages consist of the data file, manifest, and the package header. And it can also support files as well in this case. And whereas in package API, only data packages are supported. So if you have any XSLT transformation in your requirement, then you need to go for recurrence API. But in that case, if here recurrence API is not XSLT is not supported, but if the transformation can be handled in the external system, then this can be used. And this is mainly for the cloud system. And whereas API, this package API is applicable to both on-premises and cloud. And the commands used in recurrence integrations are enqueue, dequeue, acknowledgement, get message status. This might look a little bit high for you, but as you start implementing this will be a familiar keywords in your scenarios. And in the data management APIs, it will be import from package, export to package, get Azure URL. And these are all the keywords what you will be seeing in the demo. So in our case, I will be giving you a hands-on demo on the data management framework package API. So next I will go to demo. So so here we are going to make a simple scenario where we will be importing a customer group record as a package to F&O. So how do we handle it via Logic Apps is our next task. So I have created now my pattern will be this will be a recurrence. So for example, let us set it as 3 hours, 3 hours once. So I start with the recurrence. It can be even event driven also. It's purely based on your requirement, or it can be a HTTP trigger, whatever it is. So now to keep it simple, I have kept it as recurrence as 3 hours. So since this one I have stored in a container. So how do you go to a container? You have something called as storage accounts here. And I have created a storage account. And in a container, I have kept the file. So this file, it consists of a simple customer group where in our system. So now this is ready. Now let us go with the blob. Research here. Okay, here you have Azure Storage Blob, and you have these are all the actions which you have related to this Azure Storage Blob. So now the first one is I am going to list the data. What are all the files to be read from this blob? So this will be the list blobs here. So by default, the connection is already available. So if you want to make a new connection, not a big thing, change connection, you can add a new one here. This is for demo, let me give. And authentication type, I am going to give as access key. How do you do it is, go to the storage account and you have something called as access keys here. Okay, and this is this is created automatically as soon as you create a storage account. So and yeah, so it's ready. So if you see the folder, you will be able to see the folder what I have created here. It is customer group account. So in the container, this is the one. So I'm going to choose this one. Okay. And the next step is we are going to now we have listed the we have read the blob, okay, which would list the files in this blob. And the next one is you need to get the file content in this blob, right? So you already have a connector, the action for this against this connector, get blob content. And if I click this, the blob will be this from the previous step. So if you see automatically the loop has been added. The reason being the blob will have multiple files, right? So that is the reason the framework takes care of bringing the loop automatically here. And so now we are ready to with the blob content. Here comes, how do we connect this to F&O? Type finance here. Okay, and let me search for protection finance. Yes, fin and ops apps. So here I am going to do an execute action. So here I already have a connection. Let me tell you how do I create this connection. Let me create a new one for you. I am going to connect with the service principal. Service principal is nothing but I think you would be familiar with the app registration where you will have the client ID, secret and tenant details. So with that, I am going to create a connection with the finance and operations. I already have the client ID with me. So create. Okay. So here you will be getting the tenants, I mean the instances, what and all you are available, it is available for against the app registration you have done. The next one is I am going to create a blob, writable blob URL which generates the SAS token. Let me tell you why we are doing this. Give me a moment. Let it load here. It will take some time, few seconds to load, being the first time. Okay. So if you scroll down, because everything goes around the data management framework. So go to data management. You have something called as get Azure write URL. So you are not you are going to use this URL because directly you cannot pass the file content, this particular zip file, the package to the import from import to package command. So you need to convert that as a package URL and then you need to send it directly there. And that is the reason you are using this get Azure URL. File name, it is unique. You can give any file name. At the moment, I will give for. Okay. And the next one is here. If you go here, I will tell you something. So this would generate a blob URL. The output of this is a blob ID and the blob URL. So this is in a JSON format. So our radar here is you need to extract this blob URL from the output of this Azure get Azure URL. So how do we do that? So you are going to use the parse JSON here. You already have data and parse JSON. So the output will be this value. How I do is simply I go here, copy this. Since this is first time, I am just showing you how this can be done. Okay. Remove this one. You need to convert it to a JSON format. Okay. I usually do it here. I have installed a plugin here, which gives me a JSON format. So this becomes your schema. Yeah. Use this payload and this will be your schema. Over. Save it. And the next step is, so now the output of this particular step would give you a blob URL. So in that blob URL, you are going to upload this file. So that will be passed as that URL will hold your package file. HTTP. Okay. And put. So which says that you are going to see if you from the output of the step you have a blob URL ready. Okay. So this would hold the content, the file content, this one. Okay, you can rename the step properly. Okay. And no parameters needed. Over. So now this URL is ready, which is holding our file, which is a package, the zipped file, which has manifest package header and the data. The last step here is again the execute action. Okay. And I am going to choose the same instance here. And here you will be able to see the import from package. If you scroll, yes, import from package. So as soon as you click here, you will be given various parameters. Okay. And the package URL is the URL which is generated from the previous one. So because now this URL holds your data, holds your file. So I will be giving this blob URL here. Definition group ID is the definition group is the export project name. If you don't have the export project created in F&O, the framework takes care of automatically creating it for you. But in our case, I have created one F&O, the import project here. Let me show that to you. Give me a moment. Yeah, so this is the project I have created. And it's a simple CSV file. Though we are importing as package, here I have only used a simple CSV data format. So this name should be given there. Execution ID, you can leave it blank because that would generate on the fly. You don't need to have it here. Execute, yes, because this should execute the target step as well, because that goes via staging and target. So this particular parameter says that it has to execute the target step as well. Overwrite, if there are any existing files that are already there, it will be overwritten. So legal entity, now at the moment I am going to use this USMF to import. So give it as USMF. Okay, so I will just rename it. Okay, now our logic apps is ready. It's now time to execute it. You have on the run trigger, you have two ways to execute. I usually go here and do a run trigger. And this is executing. Okay, there's an error. Let me just check. Okay, I will do something here. I will just copy a proper one. Maybe file content might not be proper here. Okay, so execute action. This is fine. Okay. Okay, let me just check one. The reason why it has failed. File content here. Okay, it says. Okay.
Do you need to give a suffix of .zip with the file name?
I think it's not necessary,
Okay.
Rachit. Okay, yeah, because it says it's when it is uploading the file content that is giving us the error. There is something wrong here. That's it. Okay, so just to save our time, okay, I have already created one for the group here, so they will be able to use it. Yeah, so the similar one, let me execute it for you. That has the same steps, what has been done here, just on the count of time limitation what we have. I am going to do it here. It has succeeded. If you go to job history, yeah, it has ended. So if you go here, if you see test 1 and test 2 would have been already created. So there is also another way where you can use the NQ which imports the data to F&O. So maybe I can give you one quick. Rachit, if you have some time, can I add one more step of telling how to use a NQ here? Is that fine? We have some more time, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we have time. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, fine. Yeah. And this one is via this one is via the package API. So where we are importing the package via import from package framework. So I will also show you the another example of how do you use it via the NQ format. So here, if you see, this is recurring and integration where you need to set up a batch in F&O. So this is already the command is already available. How do we do it is, I already have a project here. So how do I set up a recurrence? Let me show that. Manage recurring job. And the authorization policy will be, and you should be giving the application ID here. Okay, I will get the application ID for you here. Fill it, and here you need to give the data source format as data package. If you're importing a normal file, this should be a file. So in our case, we are going to import the data package. Let us make it as data package here. And here the recurrence will be 1 minute. And you need to enable the recurrence here over. So here this ID is the main one which we will be using it in our logic apps. So let me copy this URL. This is for NQ. The earlier one didn't had any batch recurrence setup. So that is the reason I had told you in my earlier slide there it will be scheduled outside the F&O. So in this case, the scheduling will be inside F&O. So now if I go here, I will use the same one, doesn't matter. I will go to HTTP, the same one, post, and here I will be pasting the URL. The URL will be the F&O URL here. And the activity ID is the activity ID which we have set. Copy this. Percentage 7. So this is the convention of the open bracket and the closed bracket. And the entity name here is we are going to use the entity name as customer groups. So that will be the entity name here. And the body content is nothing but the file content, which we have already read from the blog. And here you need to add the parameter because here you are not using the execute action directly. Here you are going to use the HTTP. So in that case, you need to add the authentication explicitly here. So click here and the authentication I am going to choose here is active OData and the tenant as usual, the same details, whatever I have used, it will be used here. App ID is client ID, secret is, and the audience is the URL, and this is the secret. Okay, so this is how we will be doing for NQ. So explicitly you are defining a recurrence in F&O. That will be scheduled. So now let us see. Yeah, I will just remove these steps so that it doesn't fail. Or okay, I can do something. I can configure to run only if this has failed. So the rest of the steps will not be executed here. So now let us execute it. It's running. Okay, so now this has executed, so not to worry. So as the earlier step had the issue, it is still failing, but this has executed and you will find a record in the manage recurring job and manage messages. It will be in progress. If you see, this is the message ID. If you see the output of this step, you will see a message ID here. The output of this one, let me just minimize it. The output of this one will be 3B1, which matches with this one. So it is in progress and it is processed. If you see, test 1, test 2. If the record is already existing, it will be overwritten because the framework takes care of it. If you see, this is the one. So in this demo, I had given you a walkthrough of how to use data management package API, where the scheduler your batch recurrence, which is scheduled inside the F&O. Yes. So if you have any doubts, yeah, we can start.
Anita, you have not updated these keyword parameters and interface parameters, right? Like how
Sorry?
that data, we need to add these interface parameters and keyword parameters, right?
No, I am not using the key vault here, right? Key vault is also another option. In this case, I am using the app registration where the client ID, tenant, and the secret comes into picture. There is also another option where you can use the key vault app, parameters there. You have various options to do this integration, Sudhir. Maybe now I have chosen an option of using the app registration. That is OData, O authentication, we call it as.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and first of all, like Anita and team, Rachit and Umesh, a big apologize, like a big appreciation because you've been doing a fantastic service of providing and knowledge sharing. It's been like I thoroughly follow this community and it's been really useful. I must extend my thanks to you people who are doing the wonderful job. Thanks very much. And Anita, I have a query. Like, I mean, maybe not related to the topic, but I understand overall the concept. Uh, the one of the scenario that I could think of, like, yeah, you mentioned you will be using the package as an input for the logic app. So where it is actually picking it up the location, the source, and it's trying to process it. In few of the scenarios where we especially work with third party, so where we try to get a file from the SFTP or like, so we would hardly receive only CSV files. And for an import project like no, where we try to use package for the integration. So how do we make like, is there any way of doing it preparation of package no, on the fly with Logic App? Like because every package has manifesto and header and
Right. You have
CSV.
three files, yeah.
So, but like in some cases, like we only have CSV in the source, but when we want to prepare a package by taking that CSV and apply to Logic Apps and then pass it on to the further execution. So, how do we do that? Like, is there a way to do it?
See, either this can be, you have two options here. One is you can use the Azure functions, okay? Get the logic apps, but get the file here and using Azure functions, create this package for you. So that is one option. And since you are using, this will be using the management API, package API. So the other
Correct.
case is, in case if you have a SFTP connection with you, you can, I mean, with via logic apps, you will be able to connect to the SFTP connector with whatever the credentials they have it, right? You can connect to it. And I have also given a walkthrough of a enqueue method, correct? So you can use
Correct.
that to import the file directly. So in my demo, I have given you a package, but in that case, you can import as file directly. So that is another approach for you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Just to add, thanks, mate, first of all, for appreciating. We need this love and support to keep driving this group. So keep joining us in all the sessions, please. Uh, so another option is there are some, like if you're dealing with scenarios where you don't have that expertise or in-house developers to write Azure functions for you, there are some connectors available to create zip files. So what you can do is you can define your manifest files as a template somewhere, and then you can use these paid connectors to create a zip file for you. So that's also another option. That is basically you're not investing in writing as your function, whereas you can buy some subscription which gives you a lot of these flexibilities around creating packages, because there can be scenario where you have multiple entities in one zip file. So if you're having attachments, for example, then it can be quite cumbersome to write your own Azure function. So that is also the third option. So Azure function, ADF pipelines, third is paid connectors. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Rachita and Anita, because this is the one of the scenario where I got a chance to work on my project, and we were doing some bank no bank statements imports, and we hardly have security issues with the connecting with the bank server and getting only CSV, and everything we have to prepare manually and then import it. During that time, we had challenges like preparing the package, and as Rachit mentioned, so the same issue we are falling into, like, so we don't have anybody in house who can create Azure functions, and then I think that's where I wanted to actually understand, and I think we got some heads up now. I think thank you very much for sharing this, Anita and Rachit. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Remember
No
one
problem.
thing, before doing into the customer environment, you test it in your development environment. internally, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Umesh. Yeah, that has been the taken care. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
All right. Anyone else want to unmute and ask their question? I see a long question from Lahiru. Lahiru, do you want to unmute and explain your scenario, mate?
Hello.
Okay.
Hi,
Yeah.
Anita. So, Anita,
Problem
Anita,
I have to
can you hear me?
transfer data from D365 to another database. This scenario I have to occur this in the 10-minute twice. Currently I use the logic app and I use the data entity. In this scenario I have some problem. I have one problem is I have to move only change data so that I enable the change tracking all in the data entity side, but it take the all data every time. That's the problem I got.
Is that your custom entity or the out-of-box entity?
Custom
Which
entity.
one you are using? Okay.
First,
So custom entity, if the change tracking is enabled, then we need to check whether the change tracking is working properly or not. So if the change tracking is enabled and if you have set up a data export project for it, that would take care of exporting only the incremental load. So
okay.
there, I think you would be able to enable it for the primary table. Otherwise, you can even able to do it for the data sources, the child data sources as well, right? So we need
Yeah,
to see.
they have inside data sources and I active change track for the entire entity.
Yeah.
But
But still it is unable to export the incremental load, right?
yes, I think I firstly I added 10 rows in the table, main table, primary table, and then I do the logic cap, run the logic cap. Then I got the 10 rows, and after that I add the one row again. Then next time I ran, I got the 11 rows, but I need to get only lastly
Export
manually
only.
updated.
Okay. No, then it should be something where you need to fix it in the custom entity because you don't need to go till logic apps. So if you create an
Okay.
export project in F&O, just export it manually and see every time you don't need to disturb logic apps for it. Create a data
Yeah.
management project here. Use that entity in your data management project and make sure the change tracking is properly enabled, whether it is a primary table or the query or the CT. That you need to check. And
Not a
if
query,
those are
not a primary
properly
table. I enable it in the full entire entity.
in whole entity, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Then
Is there
maybe
is there anything to do without enabling chain tracking?
no, it is not possible. You need to enable change tracking to bring your
Rather
this
than
one
anything to do more than enabling chain tracking.
maybe you need to see what is wrong with your joints. Just check if your joints are proper there, because that
Okay.
might also. And in where are you? If you try modifying also, are you getting the entire load getting exported?
Yes.
Or only when you add? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you need to see, then there is something wrong in the custom entity only
Yeah.
then. So please check the joins and then see how it is working. And
Okay.
one more thing, what I can do, you can refer us in case my approach is whenever I create a custom entity and whenever I enable such change tracking and if it is not working, I go back to the standard entity and see if something I have missed in my custom entity. So I just compare it and see. There I get some clues.
Okay. Okay. I will compare with the standard one and I will check. Okay.
Laura, I
Lahiru,
will also suggest to check the CT query as well.
Sorry.
You can also check the CT query.
Okay.
You have
Lahi-
in the entity, you have a method call for CT query. So that also you can be checking.
Okay.
Lahiru, you can have a modified date and time, and you can have the filter on the DMF export project to include
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I think that is a pattern I have seen where customers are filtering on modified date time. And even like if it's not a very high volume scenario, you can also use OData call with this filter expression on modified date time to flesh out
Yeah.
your delta. Another option is you can also use export to data lake microservice, which has the capability to feed delta data out. So you install the microservice, bring your data in data lake, and then from there you can query and move it forward. So yeah, there are all these options depending on your situation. you can troubleshoot it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. So let's take the next one. Kunal, you are number one in the list, so maybe you can go next. Yeah. Sorry, you have a question, Kunal?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah, no
Okay,
problem.
so hello everyone, and thank you so much for Rachit, Umesh, and Naitha. The sessions are pretty much enriching, and they really give us a surface to at least start on something, and then based upon the knowledge we receive from you people, build something great. So thank you so much for these sessions. Okay, Anita, I have a question that maybe I'm unable to formulate the question well because so it's just a query that raised in my mind. I saw in the session that you chose the data entity when you were formulating the logic app design. So let's say, sorry, not the data entity, but the company data area ID. You were choosing USMF as the data area ID, that where you want to push your files, the F&O. So let's say I want to use multiple data area IDs. Let's say I have two containers in which one of the containers there are all the files of the legal entity one, and in another container there are all the files of legal entity two. So in that case, do I have to create two separate flows because I saw you choosing the data area ID manually? Or is it possible, let's say I have such a CSV file or such a data package in which in every row I have a data area ID defined over there, and my logic app would by itself take care that, okay, this row has a data area of this one, so I need to push this record into this entity. Okay, second row has a data area of data area ID 2, so I need to push this record into entity 2. So just because I saw you manually choosing it, so how to proceed in such a scenario? So do I have to get separate flows for different entities?
Is it
Sorry,
for
for different
import or export? Is it for
for
import or
import,
export?
for
Okay.
import.
So okay, if your file is having so if your file is having, does it carry the information for the company ID, or do we need to mention it in the command in that case? No, how if your file is having the data for multiple companies, how do you make logic apps identify to which company your data has to go? Right? At least that information it should have in your file, right? Based on that, at least you should be able to loop. You'll be able to extract the data area ID from the file, and then you will be able to import it.
Okay, so you mean to say that in some field I will specify that this is the data area ID where the action need to be performed, and then the logic app would itself identify that this is the area ID where the system where
No,
the record
logic
needs to
apps
be
will not
pushed.
identify. Logic apps will not identify. At least it can segregate the data. See, for this file, for this data area ID, maybe this you can create. We had a similar requirement like this. So what we had, we read the file, we segregated and created a file, each file for each entity, for each legal entity, and then we sent it as in the NQ. So that is how we did. So maybe not sure we have a better approach or that, but this is how we did. We created one file for each legal entity. Before that, we'll be reading that original file to segregate the data.
Okay, so do you mean that we were using the same flow? For the first time, we were defining data area ID 1 and reiterating the file number 1. And for the second time, we were modifying the data area ID and uploading the file 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That solves the purpose.
Yeah, I would also like to add my views here. So are you calling standard data entities or you have a custom entity, mate?
I'm assuming the same like customer group as Anita picked up.
Right. So as Anita mentioned, if it is a standard entity, you cannot have cross company if it is not enabled out of the box for that entity. Otherwise, the option is like third option is you create your own custom data entity where you keep that data area ID as one of the column of your data entity field, and then you write logic in the data entity while it's processing to change company. It will have some performance implications though, because every time you switch company on each record, then create record there and come back and switch company again. So if it's a high volume scenario, then the recommendation is do it outside Dynamics, as like you can use any ADF pipeline or Azure function or anything where your team is skilled to split that incoming data into multiple files per legal entity and push it into Dynamics. Otherwise, if one option is to customize Dynamics to have a custom data entity. So really depends on what fields, but yeah, that's another option. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Rajat.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, next one is Ali. You want to go next, mate?
Yeah. Thank you, organizers, for this wonderful session. The question here is, it is not a technical question. So basically, whenever we use the logic app, what is the cost effective here, based on the request or based on the volume of data? So just I want to know this.
One thing you have, what type of logic apps you are going to use. At the moment, I have used consumption. Okay, so this will be built based on the number of steps you have created in your logic apps. Okay, and you have a standard. So that is based on the subscription what you have selected. So you have two types here. So it depends on which one you are going to select.
Okay.
Did it answer your question? Yeah, you have two types of design here. One is the consumption workflow and other is the normal workflow. So if it's a normal workflow, it will be built based on the subscription what you have. And anyway, you have a Azure price. You have Azure price calculator as well. So that would give you a heads up on what would be the approximate cost you will be getting when you execute your Azure components.
Okay, so it is per request or how it can be?
Sorry?
It is for each request or how it can be? Otherwise, it is normal subscription.
It is, yeah. You will have a premier subscription as well, where you will have some limitation. You will have something which comes under your subscription. I think it is called premier subscription. I am not sure about it. So it is built based on the subscription what you have. This is for the other type of workflow, not for the consumption based.
Okay. Thank you. I will check this one second. Yeah. Thank you.
Umesh, you want to add something regarding pricing? I know you have good experience in Azure price.
Yeah.
And
So
you can share
basically,
some tips to save some cost there.
yeah. So basically, cost is involved. Okay. So, and in case if you're doing for development environment, you can use a subscription based out of your Visual Studio, which is comes under the Azure Dev Test subscription. And while you are using it for production or UAT, you can actually use until UAT. In fact, you can use Dev Test, and when it comes to production, you just try to use it pay as you go. And in logic apps generally we have two type of plan which is available. One plan is standard, another plan is premium. So based on what is needed and how much is your frequency and the data volume, then you can choose based on that. And even as Anita suggested that it is somewhat consumption based as well. So based on that, if your consumption is too high, go for premium. If your consumption is minimal, go with standard one.
Okay. Thank you.
So you are charged per action, right, Umesh? So if my logic app has 10 actions happening, each action will incur some cost, right? Is that correct understanding?
I think it is also based on ingress, and there is a component called ingress and outgress. So as your data center, as your data leaves your data center and goes into the Dynamics, you need to see that as well. So like it has whole lot of parameters in which we put in and then get the correct volume and prices what it is being charged for.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. So who is next? I think SK. SK, would you like to go first now?
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry,
Yes,
I was
we
on
can hear
mute.
you. Yeah, no problem.
My question is, how can we do code promotion? Because I'm new to Logic App, so I'm currently learning. I have many questions, so but I put some questions here. So other questions I can connect offline to Anita or someone. How can we do a code promotion? You said that you can use a release pipeline. So how do you define the variables? For example, URL app information. So do you have any configurations, settings? We can define it in Logic Apps.
Yes, so basically there are multiple options. So you can either use PowerShell scripts, or you can also use Azure CLI, command line interface, to do the automation part. So there are like I would say many videos available on YouTube where you can watch, but basically you can define a configuration template where you will define all these variables, and then you have another file which takes care of the logic app definition. So when both of these things are combined, you can actually automate your deployment. So I mean, it's also called as like infrastructure as a code. So without going through the UI, you can actually write everything in Visual Studio, and with the help of your Git and pipelines, you can automate your end-to-end deployment process. So there is like Logic App DevOps is a big topic in itself, so it's very hard to
Of course.
summarize it in few lines. But yes, there are many options, mate. There are so many options to automate, and yes, parameterizing and templatizing is not a problem. Yeah.
Okay, I will connect you in offline for get some more information. So my second question is regarding performance. If you are using a large volume of data, does Logic Apps is able to handle it, or because if we are going by consumption plan, it consume more resources, right? So how can we efficiently we can develop these Logic Apps? Because I have a few requests where they have to handle lakhs of records.
So I'll add my view, and then maybe Anita, Umesh, you can add. So my view is Logic App is not for reading or parsing high volume of data. If you have such scenario, do that in Data Factory or a pipeline. That will be cheaper than doing it in Logic App and more performance incentive. So
it's not about reading. Sorry, it's not about reading. So for example, my external application, so they can upload their data into blob storage or something. With the trigger, we can Logic Apps can read the file. So does it impact performance, like if the volume is too high?
So what are you doing by reading those files? Let's say if there is a file with 1 million record uploaded in a blob storage. Why are you reading it through Logic App? You can also read it through ADF if you have to do some transformations on it. So I'm just trying to understand your purpose of what are you doing with that data.
No, so we have a data management recurrency API which is being set in Dynamics side. So we want to push some the planned order details to Dynamics from external applications. So they have millions of records planned order. So what they did, they cannot directly communicate to Dynamics. So what they are doing is they are just uploading it into Azure services like blob storage. So from blob storage using trigger, the Azure function is reading the file and pushing through. I mean, they are pushing via Logic Apps. So does it impact any performance? Because I'm trying to understand, because I am new to this Logic App, so I'm trying to understand and learning. I have
Yeah, no, got your point. Yeah. So maybe Anita, do you want to add anything on performance, or
maybe
anyone
there
else?
is you can check with the possibility of file splitting also. Yes, check if the file can be split if there is a large volume of data. Even you can do that as well. But obviously, large volume with such MBs, I don't think so. You will be able to do it via Logic Apps. So maybe you need to explore the other options. Otherwise, try splitting the file and then importing it.
Okay.
Logic App is to create a workflow. Logic App is not a big data analytics or data reading platform. So I understand you got a big data and then you have to create a package and send it, but try to see what is the best tool available in Azure ecosystem to do that job. Don't put complete load on Logic Apps.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess the next one is Hamulu. Hamomo. Would you like? Yeah.
You want to unmute? Yeah.
If not, then we can go with Naga.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Naga,
Okay,
just give him a minute. Yep.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you everyone, and thank you especially for my speaker. I want to ask if this scenario is applicable for on-prem installation or on-premise environments, please. Thanks.
Okay.
This REST API is applicable for both on-premises and cloud. So if you go for the NQ one, where I have set the recurrence, it is only applicable for the cloud one. But this one, you can use it for both on-premises and the cloud.
Okay, there is some requirements or some necessary connection between Azure Cloud and on-prem connection.
So the connection remains the same. The commands, usage of commands remains the same. But to now I have connected to the F&O system using the app registration. So here in your case, you need to find the way of connecting your on-premises system using the other way. For example, whether you have the key vault or whatever approach you have, then you will be able to connect it. So the base is same. You will be able to use this API to send the data using on-premises as well. But how do you connect with what credentials you have, that you need to see.
Yeah, so basically with on-premise installation, you need to have app registration as well.
Okay, I get it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Naga, please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for the session, Arunius. So my question is, in our scenario, we have 10 different CSV files. So can we convert all these into a package or to import into a DMF?
Converting to a package, your package will be able to handle only one data file. See, the data file is the same. The package has 3 files. One is data, one is package header, and the manifest. But if you're able to collate all your CSV files into one data file, then that would work. But you will not be able to send all these 10 files into one zip file. That is not possible in this case.
So, okay, we need to create, 10 different packages then in that case.
So, sorry, Naga.
But it depends on your scenario. Why do you refine different? Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. I just want to understand, Naga. So all these 10 files have data for same entity or different entities?
These are for different entities.
And is there any dependency on the sequence, like in which sequence they need to be pushed?
No. Yes. Yeah. The sequence should be yes.
Sorry, Anita, go ahead. Yeah, I'll add my views towards the end. Yeah.
Yeah, since it is different. Yeah, sorry, I didn't ask that question whether it is for a single entity or a different entities. So you will be defining a sequence in F&O as well, right? Where in the one data project where you will have the entities with the sequence defined, right?
So yeah, so in one project, can we define 10 different entities and push these 10 files to that?
Yes, you can.
10 entities. Yes, it is possible.
You can.
Yeah.
So one data project with multiple data entities in the lines, you have to define the sequence. And then what will happen is from Dynamics, you can create a dummy export, which will give you the manifest file. So the 2 XML files which have the definition, they define in which sequence it goes. Then you can zip everything into one file and push it in. That is a possibility.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay, who is the next person? I think we have Sandeep. Sandeep, would you like to?
Hi. So thanks for the session. So I just have a query on Power Automate. So we are using Power Automate for one of our solution, and we are sending data from F&O to some CRM application through that Power Automate, and we are using some custom entity. So entity is working fine. That is not a problem. And initially we have gone through recurrence based flow in Power Automate. So it's a recurrence. Now customer is asking for a trigger based. So I am aware that the business event we can use as a trigger based. So I'm just looking that, I mean, is there any option other than business event so that we can go with as a trigger based? That's my question. Yeah.
What's the trigger? Can you elaborate? Like what type of
Yeah,
trigger
it's
is
it's it's
happening?
like when a payment journal is posted, a supplier payment journal is posted, and it hits the vendor transaction. So we are doing the export on the data of that data. So its requirement is like that. So we build the entity and it is working. I mean, if we manually export the data from data management, it is working fine. And we can also enable change tracking. That is, I mean, the delta is exporting. That is fine. And Power Automate, I mean, recurrence based, we can also use that. So now if we want to switch it on a trigger base, so what is the best possible option?
What is the volume, expected transactional volume in this
Yeah,
case?
so it's not of a high volume, so it will be like per day basis, roughly 100 on a day basis, 100 transactions.
Any reason why you are not preferring to use business event? Because it is an out of the box framework for these type of scenarios.
Yeah, so I mean, we can go for business event, but the thing is that we have some customization on the vendor transaction also. So I mean, when defining the business event, can we bring those? I mean, can we identify those fields? I mean, those custom fields that if the field has been changed, so that this event will be triggered like that. Is it possible to use those custom fields in from the vendor transactions?
So you want the business event to trigger on a situation, or you want to include those fields in the payload which is
Yeah,
going out?
in the those custom fields. Yeah.
So condition based business event you want to trigger.
Mhm.
So trigger should be
Yeah, yeah,
conditional, right?
yeah, correct. Yeah. So
Right.
is that possible in business event?
My understanding says you can either create your own custom business event.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you can extend standard business event to add this condition. You will have to check the extension point if it's available or not. But
Mhm.
you can definitely create your own custom business event which can take care of these conditions.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can always write X++ code to invoke your Power Automate or Logic app. That's another option. But
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, Anita, you want to add something to that?
No, even I was about to say the custom business event only because we had a similar requirement. With the extension, it is not possible. So we created a custom business event. And then anyway, it is all event driven, right? So whenever there is any update on that particular field happens,
Yeah,
then the
yeah.
business event will be triggered. So I have created a
Okay.
custom business event for that.
Okay. Okay. So the business event is the best possible way to make that trigger
Yeah.
based that flow. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Okay,
you get
that's
a
fine.
out of the
Yeah.
box framework to manage your eventing. So
Yeah.
business event
Yeah.
has all these parameters to do a retry, and it can be configured to an endpoint. So you don't have to worry about this framework.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
that is one of the reason you should go with business event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. That's helpful. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We have Ramesh next. Nikhil Ramesh.
Great session, guys. Rachit, I believe you know me, based out of Melbourne as well.
Welcome,
I
mate.
think we,
Welcome. Really appreciate you awake at
this,
this time. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
this is the first session I'm attending with regards to the D365 UG India. But yeah, I
Nice.
mean, great initiative. Definitely appreciate the work that you guys are doing. Like I've got just a normal, simple comparison question between the Logic apps as well as Power Automate. Most of the things that we saw now, like what Logic apps could do, is similarly achievable using Automate. So, in what scenarios do you think you would be utilizing Logic apps over Power Automate? I mean, I understand that Logic apps is an enterprise application and all that, but what I want to understand is like really the metrics. Like, do you have any kind of comparison where you say, okay, if the number of records are greater than this, then you actually go with Logic apps compared to the Power Automate and so on?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid question. It can have, yeah, I mean, different people, different views. But yeah, let's see what views people have. Anita, Umesh, you guys want to go first?
Mainly for approval based, we'll be using the Power Automate. Only also what I have seen here is Power Automate based on the Microsoft Office licenses, right? So this is closely coupled with the Power Automate. And so whatever the features you can do with Logic Apps, you can, with more steps, you can make it simple with Power Automate. So if you are using the components which are available in the Office, Microsoft Office things, for example, with the CRM or whatever it is. So that is the difference I feel. These are all the Microsoft Office products, right? So that is where the close couple is with the Power Automate. And this is Azure hosted and this is close to Azure. So Logic F&O. So mostly we'll be preferring F&O for the large scale enterprise, this one.
No, so like my scenario would be like, a customer who is using CE, a customer who is using Dataverse, as well as finance and operations. And like, in a scenario where you have integrations where like, you're bringing in some of the integrations are like, low in terms of frequency as well as the volume, but some of them are huge. Let's say like, in a retail scenario, let's say where they are not using the standard retail of finance and operations, but they're using a customized POS and they are trying to send across sales orders. In this case, like you want to make sure that the sales orders are almost real time. In this case, that's where my question is in terms of the volume, like whether do you prefer, like let's say the customer has office license also, the customer has Azure also, which would be your preferred choice in terms of the volume and the performance? Because obviously uh, every like in retail scenario the sales orders are more, like it's not a standard retail scenario. Let's say it's a convenience store or anything where you have high frequency of sales orders happening, and you want to make sure that with the custom integration you're bringing those sales orders from custom POS into your headquarters. Does that make sense? I don't know if I was able to explain the question properly or not.
No, I think these are real-time scenarios, mate, which we face day in and out. So, yeah, I think it really depends on many factors. As Anita mentioned, it Power Automate is coupled with your Dynamics license. So that is one definitely big factor. If the use cases are not too complex, go with Power Automate. But if on the other hand, if you're talking about a retail scenario, then yes, Logic App is the more matured enterprise level integration platform. So yeah, it's very hard to pick one over the other, but both have their own pros and cons. I'm not too sure from technology perspective what's the real difference under the hood. Um, I think Logic App gives you more automation capabilities. I'm not sure about, like, because Power Automate is a part of Power Platform, which means if you have to deploy Power Automates from dev to test to QA, you have to package them in the Power Platform solution. So their DevOps is entirely different to the way you manage the DevOps for your Azure resources. Sorry. So yeah, it really depends on a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
my
hard
major
to pick
concern
one.
is just my major concern is just the performance part of it. Um, like there have been like so obviously I work as an architect, so there have been like sessions where people from different technology being part of the discussion, they put a valid question in front of me asking like, can you give us the metrics of like Power Automate as well as the Logic app, saying that okay, if these many number of records are there, it's better to go with Logic apps or Power Automate. I haven't been able to find any answer till
It's very
today,
hard
but
to find such answers. Yeah, I mean these all are SaaS-based platforms, so yeah, I'm not sure if what limits Microsoft has published. Yeah, I think it's better to check with our fast track architects or someone at Microsoft, because these are really like infrastructure related questions of these capabilities. It's really hard to get hand on such level of detail.
I have one
Yeah.
comment basically. So we faced this in similar scenario, but the recommendation was to we were using just a basic and a standard Power Automate. So Microsoft suggested to go for the premium licenses. And after going to the premium licenses, we were able to huddle on the performance issues, which is where actually with the help of the infrastructure, like it's under the hood of infrastructure. So we were able to do that. So recommended is check your plans, which plans you are having, E3, E5, which plan you are running in. And then on top of it, to look for what type of Power Automate licenses you are having. Then in that combination, you will be able to do it.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Okay. I think we covered up almost everyone.
Yeah, I think we are.
Vigneshwar is left. So this is
Yeah,
the last question which we
let's
will
take
take, and
the
then
last one. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, hello sir. Thank you all. My question is related to Power Apps. In Power App D365 connector, even I'm using a data entity. The data entity cross company also enabled, but still I am getting the data from the particular entity which is mapped to the user. So is there any way to get all the company records using Power Apps data connector?
Have you tried using the cross company in yours, Vigneshwaran? We
Yeah,
have
in that
something called as
data
by default, it will fetch the data from the default company where this is mapped, the user is mapped, right?
Even the cross company is enabled in the particular entity, but still it is giving the data from the company which is mapped to the corresponding user.
Is it a standard entity or the custom
Yeah, standard
entity?
entity.
Okay.
Twice I checked in internet, they are saying like we can use Power Automate, write a OData query to fetch all the company records. This is not possible in data connector like that. So
Maybe
is that
I have tried creating a custom entity where there is a field property primary context where I have removed, it will be by default to be company ID. So if you just remove it, that would do an export for all the companies for that particular entity. So, but since you are using standard entity, then I don't think so this is possible. That would export only for the company which you have created or the default one, which it is. Otherwise, we need to explore the other options.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all. I guess the announcement for the next session would be the upcoming session. The upcoming session is with the landed costing, which will be again hosted by Satya sir, which is actually finance side for functional. So our presenter would be Saurabh, and he's based out of not in India, so he's again outside in UK, so he will be delivering that session. Thank you very much for this. We will try to close this call, and I know a lot of people are still joining, but we'll try to restrict this to this timing. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita. Big round of applause
you
for
all.
you. Can we all please appreciate Anita
Thank you.
for
Thank you,
doing
team.
this great job?
Thank you all. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
your
Anita.
support, Rachit and Umesh. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Cheers.
guys. Bye.